Hey everyone, welcome to Danny Chats. This is episode 38, and today I'm joined by Gray. Gray is a liver transplant recipient and he lives in Canada. We've got a few things to talk about today. Gray is involved with the Move for Life Foundation, and he's got some of his own stuff going on to do with the Transplant Olympics, which is really exciting. So, hi Gray, how's it going?
Everything's going really well, Danny. Thank you. How are you today?
Yeah, very, very good, very good. Excited to chat to you because, as you know, like I'm sort of very keen on the Transplant Games, and I followed what you guys did with the swimming challenge, and I saw your little interview after, and I saw your involvement, which was really, really good. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm excited to talk about those. But first of all, do you want to tell me a bit about your transplant?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. On June 20th of 2015, I had a liver transplant. What led me to that and requiring a liver transplant is in 2005, when I was 25 years old, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, something called primary sclerosing cholangitis. Now, PSC is a disease that affects the bile ducts that go in and out of the liver. And that's what helps the liver do its filtering job. So everything that you eat, breathe, and drink, everything that you take into your body gets filtered through the liver. But if the bile ducts aren't working, it can't separate the toxins from the good. And so then the toxins kind of build up in you and eventually choke off your liver. So that PSC is a disease that it has no cure and there's no treatment for it. And so the only treatment or what happens 9 times out of 10 is you require a liver transplant. So as I said, 10 years after my diagnosis, I had a life-saving liver transplant from a deceased donor here in Toronto, Ontario.
So how were they managing it before your transplant?
Well, there really was no managing it. It was up
No.
to me. Like there was nothing to be done. There is one medication, something called Urso, which it's similar to the bile that your liver in your body works and sort of creates on its own. But it doesn't really do much in the majority of people. And so I tried that and it had no effect
Yeah.
whatsoever. So what I did personally was I changed a lot of my lifestyle. I realized that my liver was like a filter for everything that I take into my body. So I changed a lot of what I was eating. Really focused on whole foods and that sort of thing, and cutting out the sugary stuff and the processed things. I also realized that my disease was one of circulation. So I wanted to increase my body's healthy circulation as much as possible. So I got involved in as much sport and exercise as possible, generally just to be healthy overall, and hoping that it would have some sort of carryover effect to my liver. When I was diagnosed, they gave me the whole diagnostic rundown of all those tests, and they gave me an idea that I would need a transplant in approximately 7 years. And I don't know if what I did had any bearing on the outcome, but I managed to last 10 years until I
Yeah.
needed a transplant. So at the very least, healthy living kept me from getting fat.
Yeah. So from that time of your diagnosis, you obviously you sort of carried on your life as much as you could. Um, what did your health deteriorate towards the end? Is that what then finally came to the point where they said like now you need the transplant?
Yeah, so over the next 10 years, I can honestly count the number of bad days I had on one hand. And I don't
Yeah.
even think I need to use all the fingers. Um, but you can't escape inevitability. So as much as that clean living, I think helped. It was in May of 2015 that I woke up in the hospital. I don't remember going to the hospital.
Really?
So when a liver stops working, the toxins build up, and they eventually build up and they start affecting your cognition and your brain function. Is something called encephalopathy. And it's essentially you're confused and you're awake, but you're not interactive, or at least how it presented that way for me. So I woke up in the hospital, and because I don't remember going, so my life for the next couple of months was waking up one day in the hospital and being told what had happened over the last few days, and then them clearing the encephalopathy with something called lactulose, which would give me a day or two of like clear thinking. And then I'd wake up a couple of days later and everybody would fill me in on what had happened over the last couple of days. It was like this weird Groundhog Day scenario for me.
That's mad. I mean, I know through my illness was like a build-up of copper in the liver, so I know how that does. Once that gets into it, sort of seeps into your body, and it starts to it affects the brain, it affects everything.
Yes.
And that's, the liver is such a vital organ, and I didn't really, even living with a liver disease, like I didn't really realize how important the liver was until I went through the liver transplant process, and they kind of explained it all, and they were like, it does everything. I was like, oh yeah.
It's funny what you take for granted when everything is running the way it should. You don't really think about it. And I guess we can't beat ourselves up for that, because why would we? I mean, we don't think about a lot of the things that our body does until it becomes an issue. It's like when you get a paper cut, you don't realize how much you use that finger in that exact spot.
Yeah. And then you seem to be knocking it all the time.
All the time.
Yeah. So how was your recovery? Obviously, you say for the first week or few weeks, it was very confusing.
Yeah, so immediately after my surgery went really well. But immediately after my surgery, my lungs filled up with fluid, and I had to be placed on a ventilator for, I think it was 8 days. And I was completely sedated at that point, because the ventilator breathes for you, but I guess at a different cadence than I wanted to breathe. It was breathing me faster than my natural rhythm. So I was fighting the machine. So they had to put me completely under.
Wow.
But the recovery after I got off the ventilator, the recovery was difficult, because I was in the hospital for a couple of months straight, and I went all the way from 206 pounds when I was filled up with fluids because of ascites, to when I left the hospital at 132 pounds, and all my muscles had atrophied. I left the hospital in a wheelchair. I couldn't feed myself. And when I got home, I lived on the first floor of my house for about a week, because I didn't have enough strength to get upstairs. So yeah, it was a gradual process of rebuilding my structure, myself, and even my mentality. There was a lot of mental strength work that I had to do too.
Yeah, I bet, definitely. Considering you were, like you say, you were very healthy and not healthy, but you were active prior to all of this. So that must have been a real huge shock. And I know just as well as you, how quick your muscles and stuff deteriorate just lying in a hospital bed, even if and after a transplant, it's really uncomfortable and painful. So you can't do a lot anyway. You can't just have the transplant and then start going out running to get your fitness back up. It really doesn't work like that. It's like
there's a couple steps in between that.
Yeah. So I mean, it's great that you managed to persevere through it all. I mean, what did the doctors say to you at the time? Did they say to you that with some training and with everything like that, you will get back to a healthy fitness?
Well, I mean, that's the dream that's sold to a transplant recipient, is that you can have your life back, but there isn't necessarily like a pathway or a defined path that you should follow. I realized when I got out of the hospital that transplant recipients, at least here, it was my experience, that they were kind of left to their own devices for their recovery. Unless you were really, really bad off, then you got to go to like a rehab center afterwards where they worked on your mobility. But if you were healthy enough to go home because your liver's working and the medication is working, that sort of thing, they send you home. But it's up to
Yeah.
you to figure out how you're going to rehab yourself.
Yeah.
Luckily, I had a number of years of experience. Like I ran my own Muay Thai gym for a number of years, like a kickboxing gym for a number of years, and I was doing some personal training before that. So luckily, I knew all of that stuff to get myself back into shape. But I did notice that there was a real hole in the market, not the market, but the hole in that patient's experience at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't really know too much what's available here in the UK. Obviously, we have actually, I don't think we have a too dissimilar health system to you, because you have a public health system, don't you, in
Yeah,
Canada?
I think
Yeah. Yeah.
that's similar.
Yeah. 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 Because I obviously speak to a lot of Americans, and it's just, it
Oh,
shocks
that's a
me.
different animal altogether.
Yeah. Yeah. It shocks me. But yeah, I mean, I don't think there's much here really in terms of, I think you might be able to get some physiotherapy maybe to help. But yeah, I mean, for me, it was just like taking it very small steps. And when I did go back to wanting to start training again, I joined up with a personal trainer, and she was like, do these sit-ups, do these sit-ups. And I was like, I can't do them sit-ups. Like, I've just had a liver transplant. People that haven't had that do not understand how
Well,
weak the stomach is. And
yeah, they cut your core muscles open in half
yeah,
to be able to access your liver. So to do a sit up afterwards is almost,
yeah.
it's next to impossible.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this was, I think I did start training, like a year or so down the line. But
Yeah.
even then, I couldn't do many sit-ups. I could do a couple. I think she was trying to get me to do weighted sit-ups to start off, and I was like, that's not going to happen. Like, now I can, obviously, but at that time it was like, no, we're gonna have to take this slow.
Yeah, you got to take your time to rebuild for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So since your transplant, 2015, what's been going on?
Well, my biggest thing is I wanted to get involved in organ donation and transplantation as much as I could. I wanted to dedicate my as much of my life as possible to the cause that saved my life. Like without an organ donor, without this, like I know it was a 25-year-old man that passed away. Without his generosity, I wouldn't be here whatsoever. And without organ donation and transplantation as a whole, I wouldn't be here. So I wanted to give back to that as much as possible and immerse myself in the world of transplant and transplant sport specifically as much as possible. So when I got out of the hospital, I heard about something called the Canadian Transplant Games, and I was a competitive swimmer when I grew up, and I was actually a fairly good one. So much so that when I saw that there were swimming events at the Canadian Transplant Games, they kind of lit a fuse, and I
Yeah,
said, "This is how I'm going to recover." So I found myself back in the pool because it was easier than walking.
yeah,
I could do more. The buoyancy of the water would allow me to do more exercise than I could if I was just like running or walking, or as you
yeah.
said, trying to do sit-ups or something like that. So about a year after my transplant, I swam at the Canadian Transplant Games and did fairly well. And it was at that point that I found out about the World Transplant Games. And so in 2017, I found myself in Malaga, Spain, and representing Team Canada in once again in swimming events, and that's where I met a lot of the people that are involved in the Move for Life Foundation right now. That's where I
Yeah.
met Jillian Best, and that's where I met Benoit Raymond, who is another director on Move for Life and a kidney recipient himself. And we are all the Canadian transplant swim team. And so I did quite well at the Malaga Games. I set 3 world records. I won a silver and a bronze, and I got involved in a few other organ donation related things. I do a 30-kilometer relay swim across a lake here in Ontario, and we raise money, and the proceeds of that money goes to something called Camp Kavita, which is it's a summer camp. It's a week-long summer camp for kids that are in Sick Kids Hospital, which is a good children's hospital in Toronto. Kids that are awaiting transplants or have just had a transplant. So it's an overnight camp experience with doctors and nurses and medication and dialysis machines and all that stuff, so they can get out of the hospital and be a normal kid. So I just really like getting involved in all of that stuff. Once again, swam in your neck of the woods. I was in Newcastle, England, in 2019, where I was fortunate enough to set a bunch more world records in swimming events. But I mean, it's the swimming, the records and the medals. That's one thing, but it's meeting all the transplant athletes from around the world. But that's
I was going to say, it's so nice that you get to combine your passion with the connecting with transplant patients, because I know from my experience, connecting with transplant patients, you just feel like this family.
Absolutely.
And it's been one of the most valuable things I've done after my transplant. So yeah, it's really, really, one, commendable that you do these things. You know, you take your time to do that. It's great that you enjoy it, and yeah, just what a great combination.
Yeah, I love meeting people that have gone through what we've gone through and decided to push the limits and to really live life. Like Danny, I look at our lives as like we've been given this gift. Like if our story was to go to the letter, we shouldn't be here right now. But because of like organ donation and transplantation, like we can have this conversation. How amazing is that? It's incredible. I love it.
Yeah, it's insane. Like there are days where I sort of do just pinch myself and I'm like, wow, lucky, so lucky. Like just little things, just walking through the woods with my dog, and I'm like, you know, just so happy to be here.
The little things. It's the little things that make the biggest impact now.
Yeah, definitely. You really notice the small things. I see that with a lot of transplant patients. Like a lot of them seem to get back to nature and really enjoy nature, and I think that's part of the recovery, where we spend time outside and you do. Spending time in hospital as well. I think anyone's soon happy to be outside again, and
absolutely.
Yeah. So what sort of medication and stuff are you on now?
I'm fortunate through speaking with a lot of other transplant recipients. My medication numbers are actually quite low in comparison. So I do take two meds. I take Imuran, which is an anti-rejection medication. So I'll take 50 milligrams of Imuran once per day. And I take Prograf as well.
I've heard of Prograf, but not Imuran.
Yeah, so Prograf I take 1 milligram 2 times per day, and that's it. And but I do take a lot of supplements as well, some magnesium, some calcium, other things like that I won't get into. But yeah.
Yeah, that's not strange, but it sounds strange to me to be on two different meds for anti-rejection, because most people I know, they're just on, like, you know, Advograft, Prograf sort of, and they just sort of stick to that one. I've not heard of someone taking two different meds.
Yeah, well, it's that's what works for me, and both of the numbers are very low still. So I just feel very fortunate, and I've been on this dose for years at this point. So obviously it's working as well as it can.
Yeah. I mean, you're very, very fit and healthy now, which is great to see. And you're sort of doing some bits for your, not for yourself, but aside from the Move for Life Foundation, and you've got some goals to help people focus on the next Transplant Games.
Yeah. As I said, when I got out of the hospital, I realized that there was kind of like a hole for transplant recipients, and they were kind of left to it was up to them to rehab themselves, and it's a difficult process if you don't know what you're doing. So I wanted to create an opportunity or create something where I can work with other transplant recipients and help them, whether it's online coaching or in-person coaching. I wanted to offer both, so that if people are looking at trying to get a system, if like a program to follow, that I could create that for them, which is fun. I like working with people online. I like working with people in person as well. There's pros and cons to doing both of those, but you can make some good progress each way. I've also had I've been fortunate to be given an opportunity initially with the World Transplant Games Federation to create some exercise videos for them. They approached me about a year ago and asked if I could create some follow-along videos. And I had never done anything like that whatsoever, but they were launching, or rather relaunching, an initiative called Refit for Life. And it was going to be like my program was going to be a part of a toolkit that transplant recipients can use post-transplant to rehab themselves, to introduce or reintroduce exercise into their lives. And they not only have my program that's on there, but they have some other mental wellness and those sorts of things as well that they offer in this Refit for Life program. So it's a body and mind offering there. So I was able to produce 8 follow-along videos for them, which was really interesting because I had never done anything like that. So there's a bit of a learning curve, learning how to edit videos and do voiceovers and add background music. But I like challenges, so I took it on. And so that's fun. That's live now on the World Transplant Games Federation website.
Wicked. I'll try and find a link to that, and I'll put it in the comments below, or in the description below this. Yeah, sure. Have you got a website or anything that people can find you? What's the best way to find you?
Well, I am active on social media on Instagram.
Again, I'll put your link down below for that.
Yeah, Chasing Greatness there. I do have my own website, something called, it's www.goalembassy.com. So GOALEMBASSY.com. And goal of Goal Embassy stands for Gift of a Lifetime, because that's kind of what I figure we've been given, is the gift of a lifetime. And I'm trying to share that gift with the world, which is where the embassy part comes from.
Yeah, nice. So are you competing in the next Transplant Games?
That's the goal. That's the goal. I would like to get back. I've got some records to defend, so that would be nice.
What swimming? What races do you do swimming wise?
Oh, well, they've changed year over year, but you'll always find me in the 50 fly. I think that's my top race. I like to swim the 200 IM as well, as a couple others that changed. Some backstroke, some freestyle as well. I like that stuff. I'm more of a sprinter than a distance swimmer.
Yeah, I'm like that in actual running. I don't like anything over 5K. God, that's horrible.
Fair enough.
Yeah, but I entered 100 meters swimming this year in the UK Games. I haven't swam for ages, and I'm not expecting that to be my strongest point. But I used to like swimming as a kid, so I thought it would just be nice to go and join in that one.
When is that taking place?
Ours is the end of next month, June, July, end of July. Sorry, yeah.
Oh, nice. And whereabouts?
In Leeds.
Okay, cool.
So it's up near. You went to Newcastle, didn't you?
I did,
yes. Yeah, so Leeds is another town or city up near Newcastle.
Oh, so, very cool, very
but
cool.
I'm really excited because it'll be the first year I've gone. And although I do secretly want to, to get some medals and stuff, like I'm just really, really buzzing to go and meet everyone and just to see this whole experience. And
Yeah, the environment and the atmosphere is amazing. It's like you talk about family with transplant recipients, like there's that immediate familiarity. You get that 100-fold at the
yeah,
at the World Games, and people from various countries all over the world, everyone's smiling and just happy to be there. It's like a week-long celebration, and then there's some sports in the middle of it.
yeah, yeah. And it's for me, it's like it is a total challenge for myself against myself, really, because prior to me getting ill as a teenager, I was very sporty, and then I haven't done anything for like 20 something years. So I had my
Right.
transplant, and I was speaking to people like Gillian, other people that I spoke to that do marathons and stuff like this, and I was like, Jesus, I've really got no excuse anymore. So I need to pull my finger out and start doing some of this myself. And it was seeing people like you and Gillian and that really did inspire me, because for me, going into a transplant, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know if we would be able to do all this sort of stuff afterwards. I didn't know if I'd be a weak, frail person. So, it's been really, these chats have been so eye-opening for me. And that's another reason I kind of wanted to share them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's good to get a perspective into what other people are doing, because if we don't do that, we were closed in our thinking. It's hard for us to see the
Yeah,
possibilities. But as soon as you see other people doing things, you realize what's possible, and then that drives your internal engine into like figuring out what's possible for you, and what do you want to see is possible for you. I love
yeah.
that.
Yeah, and I think what you said there is important. It's what's possible for you,
Yeah.
because obviously in life you can get caught up with comparing yourself to other people. And what I've learned, especially in the transplant journey, is everyone's recovery is different.
100%.
So everyone was at a different level of illness leading up to it and going into it. So it's very like I would say I was sort of fairly healthy going into my transplant. So I was only in hospitals for 5 days afterwards, and I came out. So when people say how long was you in hospital, and you say 5 days, and they're in there for 10, it's like, well, you shouldn't really compare. Like,
Yeah, everyone's road there is different. Everyone's transplant story is different. The surgery is the same, the obstacle is the same, but the lead up and the after is different. It's all
yeah,
unique, and yeah, it's not good to compare yourself because everybody's story is different. But that's what I love about the World Games, Danny. Sure, people cheer for whoever comes in first and whoever runs fast and gets the gold. But I tell you, it's the people that come in last that get the biggest cheer, because those are the people that are working the hardest,
yeah,
because they're out there and they're not the greatest athlete, and they're struggling to finish, and it might take them 2 minutes for what everyone else took 50 seconds to do,
yeah,
but they're working for a minute and 10 seconds longer than the person that
yeah.
came in first. And that's who gets the big cheers. And I love that.
Yeah. Oh, that's so nice. I love that as well. That sounds amazing. And it's so true, what you say there. Yeah, they've put in the real effort. Not that everyone else hasn't, but they've really stuck at it, and they're not there to compete with anyone else. It is literally just for them to do it.
It's a celebration of life. That's what it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. Oh, I'm buzzing. I can't wait. And
You're going to love it.
since I found out about it, like I've been telling everyone. I've never been before, but I'm telling everyone like you should go. You should go. Just because it does sound great.
Yeah, you'll like it. I promise.
Yeah. Well, it's been very interesting talking to you, and I'm sure we'll hopefully meet up in the future at one of these games.
Yeah,
That would
definitely. That
that
would
would
be
be
a
really,
pleasure.
really
It'd be
nice.
fun.
Yeah, I'd love to meet you and Gillian and the whole team.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Jill and I actually have a 5K open water swim race this Sunday. So
Yeah.
in a couple of days. So we're looking forward to doing that.
Yeah.
We're always keeping busy.
Can you tell, have you got anything else going on for the Move for Life Foundation? What's the next project for that?
Yeah, so this summer we're doing a 1,600-kilometer relay around Ontario, and we're going to run, bike, and swim around Ontario.
Just
And
1,600 kilometers.
1,500 kilometers. And the reason we chose 1,600 kilometers is because on average at any given time in the province I live in Canada, in Ontario, there are 1,600 people waiting for a transplant. There are 1,600 people on the wait list. So it's 1 kilometer for everybody that's waiting on the wait list right now.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's really cool.
Yeah.
You guys don't do things by half, do you?
No. We're going all the way. Listen, we're this is our bonus time. We're not going to live halfway. We survived some harsh stuff, and we're going to push it as far and as fast and as long as we can.
Oh man, I love your energy. Love it. So good, so good. Well, like I say, I'll make sure I put a link to your Instagram, your website. I'll put a link to the Move for Life Foundation, everything below this. So if anyone wants to find you, if anyone wants to support you, if anyone wants to reach out, they can.
That's amazing. And one last thing I just wanted to drop in quickly is I would love to work one-on-one with anybody that is interested in a training program to get themselves in as best shape as possible for the World Transplant Games. You can either contact me through my Instagram or through my website, and I can whether you're local to me in Canada or you're international around the world, I'd love to create a program that would help you get your goals accomplished. I'm just so happy to be a transplant recipient, healthy enough and active enough to hopefully help other transplant recipients achieve their goals.
Yeah, that's so cool. That's so cool. I think I'd have to speak to you about doing something. I've got a trainer at the moment, but yeah, it would definitely be worth speaking to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime. You know how to reach me.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Gray. Thank you for taking some time out of your day to chat to me.
No, Danny, I appreciate your time. This is your podcast. I appreciate you having me on wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Yeah, I feel so blessed to do this. Honestly, like I just get to invite people in, have a chat, make new friends. Like it's honestly the best thing ever. And then people thank me for it. So I'm really keen.
I'm glad you took the initiative to create this. That's great.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'll let you get on. Thank you so much, and I'll say goodbye now.
All right then. All right. Take care, Danny.
Brilliant. Thank you. Bye bye.